To me, it's a distinction without a difference. So this is a big, 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 big question, okay? And it comes down to this. It's a little bit of how you try and define the problem set. Is it Hezbollah Incorporated that is laundering the proceeds of narcotic sales for the cartels? Or is it individuals acting in their individual capacity who happen to be Hezbollah operatives or sympathizers and happen to be giving some of that money to Hezbollah? But if they were doctors and lawyers, they'd be giving some of that money to Hezbollah. To me, it's a distinction without a difference. It's led to big debates within the U.S. government, pitting the military and law enforcement on one side and certain segments of the U.S. intelligence community on the other. And I, for one, have often felt caught in the middle, both when I was the head of Deputy Chief of Intel at Treasury. We were looking really closely, a congressionally created Center of Excellence on terror financing at this issue, and as an expert out of government since. To my mind, and I've written about this extensively in the book and elsewhere, there is no question that Hezbollah has done things like put itself out there to launder funds for the cartels. And they've done it very successfully. The DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, has case after case after case. And in one case, the mistress of one of the most senior Hezbollah guys comes to Atlanta, Georgia to get a nose job. While she's there, DEA runs an op. And they're pretty damn good at what they do. I don't think most people realize how much experience DEA has in kind of the blacker side of things. And she thinks she's talking to criminals. And at one point, they basically ask her to establish her bona fides. How do we know you are who you say you are, that you have contacts with the people you say? She goes, oh, come here. She pulls him over to her laptop and calls up her boyfriend, who's one like the top guys in Hezbollah. And the DEA agents, like their heads almost explode. She gets arrested. She cooperated. She's since been deported. A lawyer in Paris was arrested in the same time, a joint op with the French. There was something called Operation Cedar, U.S. and 7 European countries working together, cracking down on used car dealerships. People are buying, expensive watches. It's an easy way to launder the cash. I mean, case after case after case after case. Does that mean that the head of Hezbollah is like checking the books every day? I'm sure not. But is Hezbollah benefiting from this? Absolutely. To the extent that they were ultimately the U.S. government had to shut down the Lebanese Canadian bank, this massive bank in Lebanon, because Hezbollah was paying the bankers to literally look the other way while I deposit the criminal proceeds from these narcotic sales. And so to me, it's absolutely the case. Hezbollah is in drug production in the Bekaa Valley. It's in Captagon. It's been in marijuana and hashish there. But the big stuff is working with the cartels, not to produce, but to help move and, much more importantly, launder the proceeds.
Whoa, that's crazy. Yeah, and I wasn't sure exactly at what level, but you're saying they've produced, but as well as laundering and as well as moving it. It's a lot more than I expected. How come this is the first time I've ever heard of this?
You're hurting my feelings, because if you say that, it means you haven't been reading my stuff. And I want you to know, I'm a little bit crushed. I'm going
to start reading.
I don't think you appreciate how good a writer I am.
Man. Well, this is, I guess my world has always been so deep into the cartel space, so much so, but not outside of that, not knowing Hezbollah was even involved in any capacity.
I'll tell
this
you
is why I was excited about
this. DEA, they kind of stumbled on this. As you well know, DEA started making real huge headway when they started not only following the drugs, but following the money. And in one particular case, they come across this guy, ironically nicknamed himself Taliban, even though Taliban is a Sunni group and he was actually with Hezbollah. And they just kept pulling at these strings, as law enforcement does so well, just following the leads. And he's telling people, look, I don't think you understand. I can get things into that port. How can you get things into that port? No, dude, I'm Hezbollah. Okay, I can do that. Talking about a port in Syria, Latakia port. Someone's like, how are you going to do this? Like, that's ours. It's ours. We got that.
Crazy.
And case after case after case, we could go all day on these cases. Some of them doing things then like taking the proceeds of the sales of narcotics and reinvesting them in used cars in the United States, shipping those cars to West Africa. I'm not talking about Mercedes. I'm talking about, Honda Accords, Toyota Camrys, big markup, and doing that to launder the funds and also making money on the laundering because you can make a profit on that sale of the car. It had huge trade-based money laundering schemes, using those proceeds to buy electronics, shipping those electronics to South America, selling the electronics. I mean, really sophisticated stuff. At the end of the day, I don't care if there's not a Hezbollah office with a plaque out front that says, narcotics liaison office. The fact of the matter is they got people who are Hezbollah and are engaged in this activity, and they're kicking back almost all of that profit to Hezbollah. And now, given the beating that Hezbollah has taken from the Israelis, given how desperate they are for money, in part because the Israelis actually blew up piles of money and piles of gold, they're going to be looking to places to make up money. Iran is still giving them money, but Iran just took a beating. And Iran can't easily send money to Hezbollah through Syria anymore because the Assad regime fell. And the new government in Syria is no friend of Iran. So they're going to look to their deep pocket donors in Africa. They're going to look to their networks in South America. And where do you go when you need big money fast? There's one industry you can do for that. And if you've already got a foothold in laundering the proceeds of narcotics for the cartels will give you as much money to launder as you can launder.
Damn. And is there, besides the DEA now, who's on top of this, is there other government organizations who now know this or pursuing this and trying to actively have any kind of stoppage of this or slow it down?
Absolutely. U.S. Treasury is very much involved. A lot of these guys get designated. Some of them get designated first on the Counter Narcotics Authority and then get redesignated again under the Counterterrorism Authority. Parts of the intelligence community are very much on top of this. FBI plays a role, especially when there's stuff, FBI and DHS, HSI, Homeland Security investigations, when there's a connection, say in Miami or somewhere else in the country. This gets a lot of attention now. But the reality is we're pulled in lots of directions. And I got to tell you, my concern is that there's been an overcorrection, and lots of counterterrorism folks, agents and others have been pulled to immigration, and there's going to be a gap now. And we've seen it, it's been actually reported since the U.S. bombing of the Iranian nuclear facilities that a bunch of those agents have been moved back to CT now. And I think that that's appropriate because the CT threat's not going away, even as we have to deal with all kinds of other things too.
Yeah, it's an interesting time. Well, talk to me about us bombing Iran. What do you see happening now? You're kind of touching on it now, but there's thoughts of potentially sleeper cells, or what do you, in your opinion, what do you think could be coming in the next 5 years?
I really don't like the term sleeper cell. It's so, like Homeland 24 TV. But a few years ago, I testified as an expert, just doing like the Hezbollah 101, not as a fact witness. I didn't know nothing to say about the defendant. And a case in New York against a Hezbollah operative named Ali Karani, who was ultimately convicted, and he's going to be in jail for a long time. And Ali Karani used the term sleeper cell to describe himself. I don't like the term, but when they use it to describe themselves, like that's appropriate. And FBI asks him, so Mr. Karani, under what circumstances do you think you'll be called upon to act on all the surveillance you've done? He did surveillance of FBI offices in New York, military offices. He did surveillance of JFK International Airport in New York. He did surveillance of the airport in Toronto, Pearson. He did surveillance of Jewish and Israeli institutions in New York. He looked into where he could procure small arms, handguns, and where he could store them, all that kind of stuff. And he answered, well, it would have to be something big, like the U.S. seen to be supporting Israel, and then like killing the head of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, or killing senior Iranians, or going to war with Iran. Like, Vince, all these things are in the rearview mirror. These things have all happened. The U.S. killed Qasem Soleimani, just bombed Iran's nuclear program. The Israelis killed Hassan Nasrallah, but they see us behind everything they do. So that's why people are concerned. And reportedly, the Iranians sent a message just before the bombing saying, if you do it, we're going to activate sleeper cells. Did they? Did they not? It's really hard to say.